The film opens during the early days of the rage virus outbreak, long before any notion of safety or recovery. We find ourselves in a quiet English countryside, where a group of survivors are holed up inside a boarded farmhouse. Among them are Don and Alice, a married couple, along with several others including an older couple and a young lady. They're living in complete lockdown, cooking meals in silence, using candlelight, and doing everything possible to avoid detection. One evening, there's a knock at the door. It's a young boy, terrified, and begging to be let in. Don is wary, but Alice insists they help him. They let the boy inside, feed him, and ask where he came from. He tells them his parents are dead. While everyone is still processing his arrival, the unimaginable happens. Infected people suddenly burst through the doors and windows. They tear through the survivors with savage speed. Panic explodes inside the house. Don and Alice are separated in the chaos. As Alice tries to help the young boy, Don sees infected swarming from all sides. He yells for Alice to come with him, but when she refuses to leave the boy behind, Don makes a split-second decision, and runs. He dashes out of the house, and flees across the countryside, chased by a wave of the infected. It's a brutal, relentless sprint for survival. Don makes it to a riverbank where a small boat is waiting. He throws himself in and begs the man inside to start the engine. The infected appear behind him just as the boat pulls away. Don looks back at the chaos, the screams, and his wife he left behind. His guilt is clear, but his survival instinct overpowers everything. 28 weeks later, we learn that the rage virus has burned itself out. The infected have starved to death, and Britain is slowly beginning to rebuild. NATO forces, led by the US military, are now in control. They've set up a secured zone known as District 1 in the heart of London, heavily guarded and monitored. The remaining population is slowly being repatriated under strict surveillance. Don has survived and is one of the residents being resettled in this secure zone. He's now working with the cleanup and maintenance crew. But the weight of what happened at the farmhouse is still buried deep inside him. Soon, his children, Andy and Tammy, arrive by train. They've just been brought back to the city from a refugee camp in Spain. Don runs to greet them, overwhelmed with emotion. He hugs them tightly and begins to spin a careful version of the truth, telling them their mother died during the outbreak and that there was nothing he could do. But the truth is far more complicated, and it's only a matter of time before it catches up to him. That evening, as the lights go out in District 1, and he lies awake in bed, haunted by the memory of his mother. Still shaken, he wakes Tammy and tells her about the dream. He confesses his fear, that he's starting to forget what their mother looked like. Without a photograph, he's afraid her image will disappear completely from his memory. Tammy tries to comfort him, but she sees the worry etched into his face. The next morning, while most of District 1 is still locked in its quiet routine, Andy and Tammy make a decision. They sneak out, slipping through checkpoints and cameras, crossing into the empty, desolate streets of post-outbreak London. Their mission is simple: return to their old home and recover whatever they can that might remind them of their mother, especially a photo. Up on a rooftop, U.S. Army sniper Doyle, assigned to watch for unauthorized movement, spots them. He radios it in, and the military starts tracking the kids' location, preparing to send a team to retrieve them. Meanwhile, Andy and Tammy run through the hushed, still ruins of the city. The buildings, once packed with life, now stand like forgotten skeletons. Streets are silent, no cars, and no movements. They find a motorbike abandoned by the sidewalk, still standing where someone probably left it the day the world fell apart. Tammy walks into the nearby restaurant, searching for keys. The inside smells of rotten time. As she moves toward the back, she finds a decomposing body slumped behind the counter. For a moment, she hesitates, fear washing over her, but she pushes through it. She grabs the keys off the corpse's belt and walks back out, face pale but determined. Back on the bike, they head toward their old neighborhood. The silence along the way only makes it more surreal. No dogs barking, or people, just the sound of tires on cracked pavement. Eventually, they arrive. The house stands unchanged but covered in overgrown grass. They walk in slowly, every step pulls up old memories. In the kitchen, they find a photo of their mother still magnetized to the fridge. Tammy takes it down and gently hands it to Andy. They move through the house, collecting mementos, whatever reminds them of who they used to be. Upstairs, Andy goes to their parents' bedroom. The room is untouched and frozen in time. But something feels off, and he walks forward and spots someone behind the bed. He gasps, as he sees his mother, Alice. He runs into her arms, and they embrace each other, sobbing in disbelief. Before long, the military storms the neighborhood. Soldiers surround the home, weapons drawn. Alice is pulled from the house and taken to a decontamination chamber. She's then stripped of her clothes and scrubbed clean. She's placed in an isolated room under heavy watch. Dr. Scarlett, one of the military's lead medical personnel, draws her blood and runs tests. Alice tells her she just wants to see her children. Scarlett, surprised by Alice's condition, gently promises she'll bring them to her after the test results. Elsewhere, Andy and Tammy are separated from everyone and placed in a secure room, confused and overwhelmed. Back in District 1, Don receives news that both his children and his wife are found. His face goes pale, and walks to the secure facility to see his children. When he arrives, the kids are cold towards him. They confront him about the lie he told them that their mother had died in front of him. Don stammers, claiming he never actually said that, but the damage is done. Later that night, Don can't help himself. Overwhelmed by guilt and the chance to make things right, he breaks into the medical facility. He sneaks past guards, finds Alice's room, and steps inside. Meanwhile, in the lab, Dr. Scarlett examines Alice's blood under the microscope. What she finds horrifies her. Alice carries the rage virus, she's infected, but her body isn't showing any symptoms. She's a genetic anomaly, meaning she has immunity. She's the key to a potential cure. Scarlett informs General Stone, but his mind is already made up. If Alice is a carrier, she's a threat. He orders her immediate termination and disposal. Scarlett argues, pleading with him to reconsider, telling him Alice's blood could lead to a breakthrough, but he refuses. Inside the room, Don stands before his wife. He breaks down crying, apologizing for leaving her, and begs for her forgiveness. Alice, despite everything, forgives him and Don kisses her. In that moment, all the worst fears come true. The infection spreads into his system like wildfire, and he stumbles back, begins to seize, and within seconds, he transforms into a rage-infected monster. He roars and launches himself at Alice, savagely attacking, biting, and killing her in a fit of uncontrollable violence. Elsewhere in the military command center, General Stone is informed that an infected subject has breached containment and is killing personnel. Without hesitation, General Stone declares a code red, a full-scale lockdown and extermination protocol. Meanwhile, Don runs wild through the corridors, tearing through soldiers in a bloody rampage. His infection spreads rapidly as he lunges at anyone in sight, turning them into monsters within seconds. When General Stone and his unit finally arrive at the containment room, they find Alice's isolation chamber drenched in blood, and her dead. Alarms begin to blare across the compound. District 1 is shut down. Soldiers receive clear, brutal orders: shoot on sight. Elsewhere in the compound, Andy and Tammy are being guarded by a soldier, and when lights flicker, the guard leaves momentarily to check on the power, only to be ambushed and infected immediately. Moments later, the infected guard returns, growling and smashing himself against the window. But just before the situation turns deadly, Dr. Scarlett bursts in, and kills the infected and immediately grabs Andy and Tammy, ushering them out into the chaos. They reach the building's exit, but panic has already taken over. Hundreds of civilians are also trying to escape, and the crowd surges. Everyone pushes, and in the chaos, Andy gets separated from Scarlett and Tammy. He's forced down into the underground parking lot, confused and terrified. He searches for Tammy, but then sees something even more horrifying: his zombified father. Don bursts in and begins mauling everyone in sight, spreading the virus like wildfire. People scream and scatter, but there's nowhere to run. Andy scrambles, barely managing to crawl into a ventilation shaft just in time. Inside the dark metal pipe, he hides, as the sounds of flesh being torn and lives ending echo around him. Up above, Scarlett and Tammy escape the building just as it erupts with infected pouring out. Snipers stationed on rooftops, including Doyle, begin shooting, taking out as many of the infected as they can. But it's already out of control. In the blur of it all, Scarlett sends out an urgent transmission across military comms, telling them to keep eyes out for a young boy, as he may carry the same genetic immunity his mother had, and could be humanity's last hope. Andy eventually makes it out of the parking garage and stumbles into a man calling out for survivors. The man leads him into a nearby warehouse, one of the last safe places left. There, he finds Scarlett and Tammy. The siblings run to each other, holding each other tight as their nightmare momentarily pauses. But outside, the situation gets worse. General Stone has had enough. With containment impossible, he orders every soldier and sniper to treat all civilians as potential threats. Anyone moving in the streets is now a target. Reluctantly, the soldiers follow orders. Snipers take shots. Some of the infected manage to get onto rooftops and begin killing the snipers. Even the perimeter isn't safe anymore. Inside the warehouse, as gunfire and distant screams echo outside, Andy finally tells Tammy the truth: their father is one of them now. Her face crumbles, they're orphans now. Scarlet gathers everyone. She explains to the group what Code Red means, a complete purge, the entire city will be reduced to ash, and that's the protocol. Doyle arrives, and tells everyone there's still a chance, they need to move now, while it's still dark. Once the sun rises, the area will be burned to the ground. The group slips out into the darkness, sticking to the shadows. They move carefully, but not carefully enough. Suddenly, gunfire erupts from an unseen sniper. Bullets tear through the dark, and Scarlet is hit in the leg, dropping to the ground in pain. Doyle quickly spots the sniper's location, takes aim, and eliminates him. With no time to lose, they help Scarlet up and push forward, running through the ruins of District 1, dodging the infected and gunfire. A few minutes later, NATO forces begin their final sweep, missiles rain down in the heart of London. Explosions shake the ground, and screams vanish in the roar of fire. The infected burn with the innocent. But Scarlet, Doyle, Tammy, and Andy manage to reach shelter. They rush to the rooftop, just before they're burned to ash. In the aftermath, General Stone and his surviving officers sit in the control room, watching the city's surveillance feed. Through the smoke and the rubble, they spot something moving: infected survivors. Not only did the firestorm fail to destroy them all, some have escaped the quarantine zone. The next day, the group finds themselves walking quietly through a deserted carnival set in the middle of a park. The siblings sit quietly together, staring into the emptiness, thinking of how much they've lost, and now Scarlet and Doyle are their only protectors. They look at each other and solemnly promise to stay together no matter what. Doyle quietly asks Scarlet why she was so intent on protecting Andy. She explains that Andy has the same eye color as his mother and possibly shares her rare genetic immunity to the rage virus. He could be the key to finding a cure, and that's why she has to keep him alive. Suddenly, Doyle gets a call through his military headset. It's Flynn, his pilot friend, telling him that he's got Doyle's location via GPS and is en route to pick them up, but he warns them, infected are closing in their location. Just as they're about to run, they spot a massive group of infected looking around. With no time to spare, they drop down and hide in the tall overgrown grass. They try to stay quiet, holding their breath, but the infected are too close, and the zombies spot them. The group takes off running, and Doyle stops and turns around, firing his weapon to buy the others time, screaming for them to keep going. Flynn radios again, telling Doyle to bring the group to Wembley Stadium. That's where he'll land the helicopter. Doyle shouts the new plan and the group pivots, sprinting through the destroyed streets of London toward Wembley. But now the military has escalated containment again. They release lethal chemical gas into the city to wipe out everything. The group finds an abandoned car and jump inside, quickly locking the doors and using fabric to cover their mouths and noses. The gas seeps around them as they see the infected collapsing all around. Scarlet tries to start the car, but the battery is dead. Doyle realizes there's no other option. He tells them to stay inside, then gets out and begins pushing the vehicle through the foggy streets. Just as he starts gaining speed, a group of military soldiers appear out of the haze, armed with flamethrowers. They mistake Doyle for an infected, and set him on fire. Scarlet and the children scream, watching in horror as Doyle burns alive, sacrificing himself so they could live. But the car finally moves, and they manage to get away. The road out of the city is a graveyard of destruction. But somehow, Scarlet and the kids make it to the dark echoing halls of Wembley Stadium. Inside, the place feels like a cavern of ghosts, dark and abandoned. As they step inside, the kids walk down the stairs but lose their footing and fall. Scarlet tries to follow, calling out their names, but they don't answer right away. She finds Tammy first, bruised but alive. Before she can find Andy, Don emerges from the shadows. He lunges and kills Scarlet. Elsewhere in the stadium, Andy wanders alone, scared and confused. Out of nowhere, his father appears again, rushing at him. Don pins Andy down and bites him, the one thing Scarlet had tried so hard to prevent. But just before Don can finish him off, Tammy arrives and shoots and kills their father. Andy stumbles away, convinced he's now infected and doomed to turn. Tammy finds him in the dark. She checks him, and realizes he hasn't turned. Just like their mother, Andy is immune. Moments later, they hear Flynn's helicopter coming in. When Flynn asks where Doyle and Scarlet are, Tammy tells him that they're dead. They're the only ones left now. They climb aboard, and the chopper lifts off, rising above the infected city. The last lights of London flicker behind them as they fly toward another district, hoping for safety, and a place to start over. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe for more notifications. Until next time. See you soon.